free speech will not be abolished in Canada. Anybody who spreads hateful misinformation about this, I will put in jail for life.
Merry Christmas. Welcome back to another edition of Stand on Guard. I am your host, David Krayden, and it's a pleasure to be here today. It really, really is. I hope you're having a great Christmas, despite everything. We'll put it that way. And, you know, we've had a difficult 2025, and we'll be talking a bit about that. But I also want to talk about some of the positive things and where we're going potentially in 2026 when I get back. And we'll be doing that in mere moments. And I've just got to get back to her. Yeah. So stay tuned. I got a little surprise for you. Promise you.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need to resolve to resist.
Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah. Been quite a year, hasn't it, folks? Quite a year. And before I get into what I want to do is read to you my column on human events and sort of comment on what I mean by it, because it came to me this week. Are we going to be allowed to say Merry Christmas next year at this time? I honestly don't know. But before we get there, let's have a look at the merchandise.
Ho, 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 ho.
Who cares?
And of course, you saw the, I would say now famous Universal Ostrich Farm hoodie. We've sold so many of those, I was able to give a check of $1,500 to Katie Sydney and her mom, Karen. I think it was last week. And if we continue to sell them, we'll continue to donate. And of course, we would like to sort of allow Katie and her mom to start selling that hoodie. And I think they're almost at the point of doing that. So many exciting things happening, by the way, potentially happening at the farm. They're on the verge of getting the quarantine lifted. And I can't say yet how that's going to happen. But I probably will be able to next week when Katie joins me on the show to discuss what's happening. And I just want to show you this brief video that Katie put out. This is a difficult Christmas for Katie and her mom. Very difficult. And she's doing her best. And she was on the road. Well, she was visiting family the last couple of days. She came back late last night. I was literally on a telethon that independent journalist Chris Dacey and a couple of others, Mike Quigley and his wife, had arranged to help support the farm. And I will continue to do fundraising for Katie and the farm in the new year and in the next week, because I think they need it. I know there are people out there who think, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. Well, I'm doing it. I'm going to continue to do it. So anyway, I'm on this fundraiser last night with Chris Dacey Mike Quigley and his wife. And Katie texts me and she says, just about went off the road, went sideways on the highway on the way back from Kelowna. And when I arrived back on the farm, we had to do something about the tent. Now, this is the tent that the bylaw enforcement officer had complained about. So the tent is being buffeted by the wind, so all hands on deck. So I don't know how that turned out. I'll probably find out today. But never ends. So, but I want to put this little video on from Katie before I get into my Christmas message here. And thank you, by the way. Merry Christmas again to all of you for the love and support you have shown to this station. We need your support to continue. Subscribe. And go on. Craydens Right News. That's where you find it all, not just the work that I put on YouTube and X and Rumble and Facebook, but the work that I'm doing in Substack. I've got to get a Substack column out this week. I've taken out the last 2 days. I just needed to relax and refresh. And this is why today, this is really about Christmas more than anything else. And it's a thank you to all of you. But please share this with your friends and family. We need to get subscriptions up to 100,000 by spring. We need to do that because we're facing increasing opposition, not just from the powers of the left, the woke powers, but from people who want to shut down independent media. We're going to continue to fight that. We're going to continue to resolve to resist. But let's listen to what Katie has to say here.
Hi, everyone. It's Katie with Universal Lost Church, December 23rd. This is a message being brought to you. Concerned Livestock of Canada. So, after further deliberation and research, really looking into the framework of the World Organization of Animal Health, it is really important that our farmers really understand that repeatedly in statements and writing, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency basically used the guidelines and standards of World Organization of Animal Health to basically get away with murder. And so one thing we have to be really careful of is understanding, there's Johnny, is that WOA's framework does not mandate stamping out in all circumstances. As much as Canadian Food Inspection Agency said that they had to kill the ostriches due to the WOA's framework, that is just a lie. So we have to pay attention that if they're using this as an excuse to go around killing animals and blaming it on WOA, this is just absolutely false. And we should all be concerned. It's our livestock and our domestic house pets, because they are coming for everything. So they misled the Canadians and people all around the world, stating that due to the WOA standards, they had to kill all of our animals. We are just a bunch of very concerned livestock in Canada. Whoa, Maggie, that's a little much. So this is Hugh, this is Maggie, and this is Becky. These are my babies. And we all need to rise up. So on this December 23rd, rise up, Canada, because this is our time. Everything is in jeopardy of being killed due to the lies of Canadian Food Inspection Agency. If Canadian Food Inspection Agency actually listened and used the framework, and Johnny, of the WOA, we actually wouldn't have even been in this position, because they do have other methods like risk management. They could have surveillance, containment, monitoring, and they just did not use that. But repeatedly in all of our court documents and in court, they said that they had to kill our animals to WOA. So again, just one more misleading piece of Canadian Food Inspection Agency and their lies. So we need to rise up. We need change, Canada and all over the world. Big shout out to John Parker in Louisiana. You keep posting great videos and encouraging us to keep the fight up. So I just want to say thank you very much, and we love you. Hugh, what do you think? What do you think? I think Hugh agrees. Do you agree, big guy? Do you agree, big guy? Yeah, that's a boy. That's my boy. Oh, that's my boy. Oh, yes, you've got the big horns. He's my big boy. So this is Maggie, is actually the baby of Becky, the orange one here. It was always my dream to have Highlanders, and these are my babies. So the ostriches were beacons of hope, but this is about all animals across the world. So please rise up, Canada, rise up around the world, and let's get united and the fight up. So God bless every one of you today, and thank you for being you. Bye-bye.
So please consider donating to Katie and her mom and the farm at this time. It's a difficult Christmas for them, and you can go to www.justicefortheostriches.com, or you can still go to Save Our Ostriches if you want to make a donation. And I won't say anything more about that, but Katie's been an inspiration to me this year. That story, I covered it from late March onwards, and I'm still covering it. I'll continue to cover it until there's justice for the CFIA and there's justice for those who perpetrated this crime against these farmers, against this family. I'll continue to do whatever needs to be done, obviously within a legal framework. And we're doing that. We've got people on our side now who have deep connections within the establishment who are fighting back and who are saying this was unacceptable. This should not happen, should not have happened. This will not happen again. Now, before I get into my human events piece and explain what I'm talking about, I want to do a little song for you. This is one of my favorites. It's not a sacred piece. It's not really a carol, but it's a modern classic written by Mel Torme. And if you know jazz music, the Great American Songbook, popular song, you know Mel Torme. He was a contemporary of Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, a little later than Bing, a little earlier than Andy Williams, but in that same wonderful block of singers that I adore. And I want to say, I talk strictly politics on this station. I'm going to delve into more entertainment in the new year, because sometimes you can just get over inundated with politics, and you have to remember why you're here. And it's not always just about politics. Sometimes there's things in your life you have to rediscover. And so I want to do this song for you. I have to do it a cappella, because if I do it with music, I'll get demonetized. I might even get a strike against me. And that's the way it is. So I hope you, this is my Christmas gift to all of you. And I want to thank all of you who have emailed me throughout the year with your words of encouragement. People like Susie Sanderson, who emails me just about every day to say, keep it up, David. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, Susie, and all of the others out there who have encouraged me throughout 2025 to keep on fighting. But here's one of my favorites. This was made famous by Nat King Cole, and a single version. He re-recorded it for an album in the 50s. And I can just hear the do-do-do-do, the beginning here. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe can help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. Well, I think I had one little glitch there. Hard to, without even hearing any music. Sometimes it's easy to lose your way. But I hope that was acceptable. And I love that song. And I might sing another one at the end here, because this is the kind of music I always loved. But I want to go into my column here. I'm going to share the screen with you. And this is my human events column. Merry Christmas, Canada. Well, we're still allowed to say it. Canada has turned into a cult of death. Yeah, that's nice for Christmas. Eh? That's true. Merry Christmas, Canada. If I may be so bold, proclaiming any allegiance to Christianity can be a dangerous thing in Canada. Just remember how U.S. evangelist Sean Foyt was persecuted from coast to coast when he tried to proclaim the gospel to Canadians. Not so in America. In his first term of office, President Donald Trump encouraged Americans to wish each other a Merry Christmas and not to use the cop-out phrase, Happy Holidays, that allegedly more inclusive and avoids being too clear that this is a Christian celebration and should be so identified. In his second term, Trump has continued to fight for traditional family values. During his inauguration address, he emphatically stated that there were only two genders and promised to stamp out the diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that had infected governments and corporations in America. He has recently proposed new laws to ban gender mutilation of children. This invasive, vicious, and barbaric process has been marketed as, quote, gender-affirming care, unquote. One of the most Orwellian euphemisms ever promulgated by the woke left. Trump has continued to pursue a pragmatic and democratic approach to abortion, where states can decide whether this procedure is truly, quote, healthcare, unquote, or the murder of the unborn. But in Canada, it is actually illegal and considered hate speech to, quote, misidentify, unquote, a transgender person by referring to the individual's biological sex. This was just the beginning of the liberal regime's assault on free speech that has continued unabated for the last decade under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and now with even more ferocity under Prime Minister Mark Carney. We'll get to the current wave of surveillance and censorship laws a little later. But nothing has defined Canada's moral chaos more profoundly than the complete absence of an abortion law. The Supreme Court of Canada struck down Canada's existing abortion law in 1988, and the government of the day, under Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, was unsuccessful in passing legislation to replace it. No successive government, either liberal or conservative, has even attempted to pass a law governing abortion, to the point that today Canada has unrestricted access to abortion on demand, up to the point of birth, and in some places including. The Conservative Party of Canada has many pro-life members of Parliament. When they declare their opposition to abortion, they are only speaking for themselves and their consciences, because the party has steadfastly refused to take a position on abortion. Liberal cabinet ministers routinely stand up in the House of Commons to pronounce abortion to be a foundational right in Canada, that essentially defines the country's democratic values. Democrats in the U.S. once spoke of abortion as needing to be safe, legal, and rare. Liberals in Canada can't get enough of the ghastly procedure. Choosing to live in abject denial that an abortion is a hugely traumatic experience, even for women who say it was their choice to make. But if abortion has become an odd, cumbersome, and untenable celebration of death, Canada's euthanasia program that exists under the euphemism of medical assistance in dying, or MAID, has turned Canada into a cult of death. Canada has literally become the suicide capital of the world, as people actually come to the country for the sole purpose of having a doctor administer suicide rites. People are actually being offered MAID while they are waiting for operations that come too late under Canada's socialized medicine. So if you require surgery for cancer, your wait time might exceed your expected lifetime. So in the meantime, why not consider assisted suicide? The Liberal government was poised to expand the, quote, eligibility, unquote, for MAID to the mentally ill, drug addicts, and even children. But pushback from some psychiatrists resulted in the health minister at the time putting this proposal on hold. But the priests of the cult of death are only biding their time. Another cornerstone of the Judeo-Christian heritage that was once foundational to Canada is free speech. Like the U.S., Canada has always nurtured, respected, and protected freedom of speech because it was a democratic right inherited from Great Britain, going back to the proclamation of the Magna Carta in 1517. But Canada is so awash in hate speech laws. The toxic notion of hate crimes was introduced into the criminal code in the 1970s, that it might soon be mirroring not the historic Britain of free speech, but the contemporary United Kingdom that imprisons, quote, keyboard warriors, unquote, for daring to question the accepted narrative on a variety of issues from mass immigration to the war in Ukraine. Canada unleashed internet suppression during the Trudeau years and came very close to passing the Online Harms Act, a grotesque bill that sought life imprisonment for hateful expression and envisioned the prosecution of thought crimes through house arrest. Someone merely had to suspect you of harboring hateful sentiments for the police to be at your door. This is already happening in the UK, where the police, 11 officers in total and 10 of them male, recently entered a woman's bathroom where she sat nude in the tub to arrest her under the Malicious Communications Act. What's most galling about this incident is that Elizabeth Kinney used the offensive speech in a private text message, which the police had obviously been monitoring. The Online Harms Act, which will probably be renamed the Online Safety Act, is set to be reintroduced in Parliament when the House resumes sitting in January or February. Bill C9, which hasn't even been given a proper name, could be passed early in the new year, and it targets a plethora, of quote, hate speech, unquote, and quote, hate symbols, unquote. If you thought hate speech was open to vast interpretation, how about hate symbols? So as Canada edges closer to the abyss of authoritarian government, there may be only two choices: mass prayer and national repentance, or the submergence into a tyranny that will provoke a longing and demand for freedom again. Merry Christmas, Canada. Well, we can still say it. So that was my heartfelt look at the way we are right now in this country. And I see I'm not attracting a lot of viewers today. Maybe because it's Christmas, maybe because I'm just sharing my own material with you. I don't know. But I thank you for those of you who are watching. I thank you. This has been a confusing year. And we're living in very confusing times. I've always called myself a small C conservative, sometimes a small L libertarian in terms of my view. I don't like government interfering in my life. I respect capitalism, free capitalism, and private property. In terms of my morality, I guess I'm fairly socially conservative, but I don't necessarily think I have to impose those views on other people. I just don't want the government imposing its view on me or other people. I don't want the school system to impose woke ideas on children, my children, or anyone else's children. I don't want the government deciding what's right and what's wrong for us. I think we can make up our decision for ourselves. I strongly believe in freedom of religion, to be religious or not to be religious, to believe in God or not to believe in God. I choose to believe in God, and I choose to celebrate Christmas as a celebration of Jesus Christ. That's my choice. I don't force that on anybody else. But don't try to take that out of the fabric of Canadian society by saying Christians don't matter anymore, whether you're an evangelical Christian, a mainstream Protestant, or a Roman Catholic. Don't tell me that that's not relevant and that's not foundational to what Canada was. But, you know, as I like to say, this is not the Canada I grew up in. And no, I'm not that ancient, but I remember a Canada very vividly where the government wasn't constantly trying to socially re-engineer the way we think, the way we act, how we define ourselves. I remember a Canada where we celebrated our history. Yes, there were problems. Yes, we made mistakes. But yes, we were also a great democracy and always advanced the good. Sometimes we did it in the wrong way, but our impulses and our objectives were almost always good and correct. We celebrated our prime ministers like Sir John A. Macdonald. We did not treat them as criminals. We did not say that they were somehow anathema, that they were somehow bad people who were actually guilty of genocide. How ridiculous is that? I remember Canada where churches weren't burning down all the time, where we had prime ministers who defended Christianity and weren't afraid to say so. I remember a Canada where we talked about free speech. I remember a prime minister. Well, no, I don't remember him as prime minister. I vaguely remember him he died as a member of parliament. And that, of course, was John Diefenbaker. Now, Diefenbaker had a lot of faults. And I really didn't agree with his foreign policy or military policy. But he was a great Canadian who believed in freedom. And he loved to say, I am a Canadian, a free Canadian, free to speak my mind as I choose, as I please. When he released the Canadian Bill of Rights in 1962, it was all about our ability to exercise our free speech. Where are we today? We're on the verge of losing free speech in this country. If Bill C-9 passes, that's one of the last nails in the coffin of free speech and free expression in this country. That's going to essentially cement hate speech everywhere we go. And it's going to shut down a lot of broadcasters who are going to be self-censoring, or they're going to be off the air, or they're going to be charged under this new legislation. Bill C-9 must be stopped. Even worse, just behind that one is the revived Online Harms Act, which I predict will be renamed the Online Safety Act because it sounds so much better. It sounds much more innocuous. The government just wants to protect our safety. They want to protect the safety of children and women who have been wronged with revenge, PORN. They want to protect people from themselves and from malicious speech. Of course, it's all a con game. They want to remove our free speech. But as John Carpay said in my last interview with him this week, and this was very, very important to note, the one freedom you don't want to lose is freedom of speech. Because as long as you have freedom of speech, you can defend other freedoms and attack the government for trying to take those freedoms away. That's why the tyrannical governments of Justin Trudeau, first of all, and now Mark Carney, want to take free speech away. Because without free speech, we cannot fight back on other infringements on our democratic way of life, on other abridgments on our free expression and our freedom of action. We lose our free speech, we don't have free assembly. We lose our free speech, and we don't have freedom of religion anymore. Whether we have that at all right now is up for debate. And I think it's extremely important that we continue, and I'll use the catchphrase I say here on this station every day. We need to continue to resolve to resist, because if we don't do that, we lose everything. So I encourage you, we're going to continue to fight hard against censorship and surveillance. And you know what worries me is that I had such profound faith and hope in the administration of President Donald Trump. And to some degree, I still have great sense of hope and optimism. But I'm looking at things that are happening in terms of surveillance. Why is Palantir so close to the Trump administration? What is he really building underneath that ballroom in the White House? And I'll be dealing with that in the new year. There's hard evidence out there that there's a data collection center being built underneath that ballroom. That's the whole purpose of this redesign of this interior decorating that's going on at the White House. And God only knows what's happening on Parliament Hill, because there's been renovations going on there. And if anybody who's visited Parliament or who works there on a daily basis knows, my God, we haven't been in center block for question period. Parliament's not sat in center block for many, many years. It's all in what used to be known as West Block. So what's really been going on during all these years and years of renovation? Well, we don't really know, and we're not allowed to know. And that's one of the big issues. And that's the problem. So as we inch closer to the end of 2025, I don't know at times who I'm supposed to trust. I guess all we can say is we have to go to what's foundational to what I believe anyway, is Scripture, and what does God have to say about this? Because it's like the traditional paradigms no longer work. And I find I'm working with people like Jimmy Dore, for instance, who was a lifetime left of center Democrat, who can't support the Democratic Party anymore because he realizes they're in bed with the same people that he criticized his whole life. They are the ones promoting censorship and attacking free speech. So I find myself allied with people who at one time I would never think I could have been allied with, because we're getting back to what's most important: your individual freedom, your freedom to celebrate the faith or the religion you want, the freedom to assemble, your freedom to speak your mind freely, your freedom to oppose policies and narratives that you don't choose to support. And that's why the definition of conservative and liberal just doesn't have the same meaning anymore. We have moved more to what's right and what's wrong, who's on the right side of history, who's on the left side of history. I go back to Katie and the farm. I'm sure that's a family that never really cared much about politics. They cared about farming. They cared about doing their job. They cared about doing hard work, making a living, and doing what they needed to do. It wasn't until the government tried to take away their livelihood, their property, and perhaps even their lives that they began to wake up. Katie said she had her red pill moment at that time. She realized that you just couldn't ignore politics anymore, and you had to wake up to the reality of the tyranny around you. And that's what she did. And for a lot of Canadians who have never cared about politics because it's just such either a bore, or it's so acrimonious, or it's so divisive. Well, for our own sakes, sometimes we have to pay attention to politics. because otherwise we're going to get steamrolled by the forces of tyranny that are out there to stop us and to take away our foundational rights. Now, I probably said more than I should about that today, because this, after all, was a Christmas message. But as we celebrate Christmas today, let's thank God we can still do so without the cops coming to our door. That story about that woman in Great Britain, I just found that to be so outrageous. This is why I'm continuing to talk about it. There are people out there who probably thought that was a hoax. 11 police officers walking through your front door, walking up your stairs and into your bathroom while you're in the tub nude? That can't happen in a democracy. That can't happen in a country like Great Britain. Yes, it did. Yes, it can. And we are poised to be like that in Canada too, where the police will have these ultra viris sorts of powers that they can enforce upon us without any way of us objecting. Who should have been charged with 11 cops walking into a bathroom with a woman sitting in the tub with no clothes on? The cops should have been charged for that. A woman who uses a so-called offensive phrase in a private text message should never have been charged. It should never have even been a consideration. But that's what the UK has become. It's become an authoritarian police state. Let's face it, that's what it is. We might never see another election in the UK. And if we do, the next government could be just as bad as Herr Keir Starmer. This is my Christmas message to the Conservative Party of Canada. And I hope to have Pierre Poilievre on the show in the new year. I've asked, and I've known Pierre Poilievre for decades. No, he's not a drinking buddy. He's not somebody I go have coffee with. He's somebody I've known in the political process because I worked on the Hill for many years. And I'm going to invite him again to come on the show to talk about surveillance and censorship. And I've said some good things about Pierre Poilievre in the last couple of weeks. And every time I do, some of the audience says, stop praising Pierre Poilievre. If I don't praise Pierre Poilievre, some of my audience says, you're undermining the last hope we have in this country. I think Pierre Poilievre is going to remain the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. I think he's going to easily get through this leadership review in January. But when he does, when he gets that reassurance, when he gets that affirmation from the Conservative Party grassroots, and that's really the people who show up at these leadership review, at these conventions, he has got to go forth and pronounce his party's complete support of free speech and complete opposition to bills like C9. And we don't need a replacement for the Online Harms Act. We don't need an Online Harms Act that's not quite so bad. And the worst thing about the Online Harms Act was not the fact that it was going to hire more bureaucrats and another layer of democracy to enforce the Online Harms Act. That was supplemental to the worst part of it, which was it was going to destroy our free speech and actually make thought crime real in Canada. That's why that bill needed to be stopped. And Pierre Poilievre needs to make that quite clear. So I think he's going to pass easily through this leadership review. He's got to be tougher in pronouncing principled conservatism in 2026. We'll talk about this more. I'm envisioning a show, by the way, for the December 31st that brings on a bunch of the guests I've had on all year. Maybe not live. Maybe I'll have to record some. But I want to thank, some of the great guests I've had on this year. Premier Danielle Smith. I'm not sure how the MOU is going to work out, Danielle, but I think you're a great premier. I want to thank people who have come, like Neil Oliver. Absolutely a fantastic friend whose wisdom, sagaciousness is just so obvious and so incredibly relevant for this time today. Dr. Naomi Wolf, who's been on the show several times, to talk about the hard work she's done to expose what Big Pharma did during the COVID-19 mandates, during that whole pandemic. Colonel Douglas McGregor, thank you so much for coming on this show and giving us the honest analysis of military affairs. And the list goes on. Or people like Jason Levine, a fellow broadcaster from Alberta, who, like myself, tries to give you more than just news clips from CBC every day, but tries to give you original news, interviews, and actual assessment, not based on what CBC is telling you, what global news is telling you. Thank you, Jason, for coming on the show, and thank you for the invites you've given me. And I love the work I'm doing with Nico Lagan. We do our show every Wednesday. Didn't do it last night, I think, because it was Christmas Eve. I tried to get hold of Nico, and I'm sure, yeah, family comes first for Nico, and that's great. But Nico, we're doing a great job with the Conservative Corner on Wednesday nights at 6:30. Let's keep doing that. Let's not run away from surveillance and censorship. Let's face it with our eyes open and our minds afire and our voices ready to attack. Let's not submit to what this authoritarian government wants to do to us, but let's fight back and make it clear we are going to continue to resolve to resist in 2026. We are going to continue to fight back. We're going to continue to be free Canadians who are free to speak our minds, or else we lose it all. And there, I don't know if I'm not going to stay in a Canada where I'm not free. I don't know where that is going to take me, but it's going to be someplace else, because I'm not going to submit to tyranny. And a lot of people are telling me the same thing. Thank you for watching today. This has been a rather unique Christmas show. So I want to end with something here. Now, this is a bit of a gamble, shall we say? Yeah. And we're going to try this here. I just want to make sure we got. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. Merry Christmas. We'll be back again on Boxing Day. Thank you so much for watching today. God bless you, all of you. God bless us, everyone, as Tiny Tim said in the Christmas Carol. And watch that movie if you have a chance. We'll be back again tomorrow. Continue to resolve to resist. I'm on your side. Please stay on mine. Thank you for sharing this station with your friends and family. Thank you for hitting that like button, because I tell you, we are fighting back in a way I've never had to before, because I'm going to keep this station on the air. I'm going to keep fighting for freedom. I'm going to keep fighting for justice and truth. And I am damn determined to resist this Carney government in any way possible, as it encroaches upon our individual freedom. And it will continue to do that, mark my words. I'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place. 10 a.m. This has been David Crayden. Broadcasting live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.